When was the time that you found I'm good at this? This is my thing. I want to be in control of my life and I know I'm going to succeed.
I would say so. I've blown out my knee. That
Okay.
injury was like just made me even hungrier, you know? It's like I
Okay.
wasn't willing to experience this again in basketball. I wasn't willing to experience this again in rugby, but I was willing to experience this again in MMA. I
Oh,
was willing to come
wow.
back and risk it all again.
When I did my very first talk, I went in front of the crowd and I swear to God, I forgot my name. I opened my mouth, nothing came out, nothing came out. Because the moment you start to put up a goal there, like, okay, this is the end for me, it's simply meaning that you're start to develop fixed mindset.
But you can always be in control and decide how much effort you're going to put into it. Even though I have all these fears, what I do to try to counter all of that is I put in the work.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Living in Control podcast. I'm your host, Reza Abraham. I'm the author and co-founder of In Control, an organization with a mission to help others to be in control of their life and career. We imagine a world in which most people are in control of their lives, a conscious life accompanied by conversion, contentment, and consistency. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about another pillar of living in control, which is called courage, which courage is your ability to get out of your comfort zone. Today on our podcast, we have someone who faces the fear like nothing you have seen before. And I think the most courageous guest that I have ever had on our show. And she is not only a fighter in her life, but also a fighter in her career. She's a professional MMA fighter. She's the first woman from Hong Kong to fight in the UFC. She's also a USC business graduate. She's also a TEDx speaker. As someone who delivers the speeches for living, I personally must admit that was one of the best delivery I have ever heard in my life. And where she spoke about why fear is our greatest asset in unlocking human potential. Joining us from Vegas, United States, let's welcome Ramona Pascual. Hi, Ramona.
Hi, thank you so much for those kind words.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's really a privilege to have you on our show, and I really appreciate your time being with us. Yeah. So let's get it started, right? Ramona is like joining us from her car, So that's amazing. So Ramona, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and just for your, like, how do you want to be introduced, like when you meet people for the first time?
Yeah, so I was raised in Hong Kong, spent most of my life there. It's where I first got into sports. At first, it was team sports in school, basketball, rugby, and I didn't pick up martial arts until I was maybe about 16. But once I started, I fell in love with it. And I hadn't planned on competing at all. Like the thought of fighting never even entered my mind, but I just did it because it was challenging. I did it for fitness. And as someone who has always in my youth struggled with confidence, that was the one avenue in which I could really challenge myself and overcome and then slowly uncover and develop confidence in myself. And that's sort of been the theme of my life, of martial arts being the vehicle in which I was able to figure out who I was or who I wanted to be, and to better equip myself to reaching or dealing with challenges, whether that be in my career or outside of it. And so I went to USC. I got my degree, did the whole thing like everyone's supposed to do, and I had no plans to be a professional athlete, even though I knew as a young child that's actually what I wanted, but it just wasn't promoted. It wasn't encouraged. You were encouraged to do sports, but you're encouraged to do sports so that it would look good in your college resume, and then so you can get into a good college and all that
Yes.
stuff. And it was always just recreationally, like don't take it too seriously. And so graduated, and I took a gap year because I kind of was still just trying to figure out what I wanted to do for work. And I thought, why don't I give this competing a try? Because at the time when I was in LA, I was at this gym and there were all these fighters, but they were all very normal people, people that I respected a lot, people that really were an example of who I wanted to be, who carried themselves a certain way, who had a certain level of confidence, but were also really kind, and very put together and had their lives in order. They had jobs, they were parents and this. And I thought, well, if they can do it, and I was just really inspired. I just thought, why can't I? Why don't I try it and see? And so for the 1 year, I thought, okay, at the time I was only doing Muay Thai, and I fell in love with Muay Thai to do it for years. And that would be, I guess, the martial art that I was first introduced to. That's what you would call my base. And then, so in that one span of 1 year, I fought 4 times, like I think a couple times in Hong Kong and then a couple times in Thailand. And the feeling of stepping into a ring and preparing, for like weeks and months to fight one individual and just go for it, put my heart and soul into it. And at the time, it wasn't so much strategy involved. I just didn't have that experience of like handling the pressure or whatever. It was just, everything was just in high gear. It was just like, go, 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 go. It was like a bit erratic, as would be a beginner getting into fighting. And I just will never forget that feeling of intensity that I just never felt before, that fight or flight of literally fighting for my life when I'm in there. And it's something so primal about it, so pure, that you just don't get anymore, because obviously modern day, like we're so protected, we live in comfort, and it's fantastic. We're able to do all these different things, but it's also, we lose that experience of that utter sheer desperation of, make it or break it, right? Life or death. And so I would remember walking out of the ring, and it'd be whether I won or I lost, it'd be like, wow, like I just did that. And just feeling this sense of accomplishment and just being so proud of myself. And then after that, it was kind of like, time to get a job like everyone else, because everyone's going into consulting, going into finance, going into real estate. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to go look for those jobs. And so I was in sales for a little bit, and I went into management at this sort of startup, this like gym startup, and then kind of stayed within that role of like managing a small business, and then eventually a little bit more sales, and then really basic stuff, right? Because I thought, oh, maybe finance might be where I want to go. And then I just like dipped my toes in it. And I did that until I was like 27. All the while this is going on, I'm still like in the gym twice a day. Like I had such a strong passion for martial arts, and I was training Muay Thai, and then I got into jiu-jitsu, and then I got really into jiu-jitsu. At the same time, women's MMA was on the rise, and it was really blowing up. And I was working these jobs, and it was more of an expectation of like meeting the expectations of other people and trying to fit into a mold that was sort of laid out before me, that I didn't realize wasn't really me. But it took me a really long time to figure that out. And then eventually, I was 27 years old, and I remember going on this trip, and all of my trips, more or less, my holidays just went to training. I would just go to different gyms, whether it be like in California or Thailand. And I would just train. I would just like train 4 times a day and get really excited. And then there were people that were there who just like, that's what they did. They were like professional fighters. And I just was so happy in those moments. I just felt like myself, like, oh, this is who I am. I'm actually this really positive, happy, excited, enthusiastic person. And I just didn't feel that way in my life in Hong Kong working these jobs. And so it just became something just clicked where it was like, okay, I'm 27, I'm going to be 30 soon. And by that time, it'll be too late, probably. I mean, you never draw a line in the sand. Maybe it wouldn't have been, but the longer I waited, the smaller that window of opportunity becomes.
Yep.
Because 30 years old in like athletic years is like, 60 years old in like regular human years. So then it was now or never. And I think I always had this fear of not meeting the expectations of other people. And so that's kind of what motivated me to take on these roles that I thought I was supposed to take on. And then it was a fear of like judgment, fear of people not wanting me or not liking that I wanted to get into fighting, that I wanted to be an athlete. And so I kind of kept that under covers, and I just didn't talk about it. Didn't really, I mean, all my friends knew, obviously, like I was always in the gym, but I just didn't make it known that like, actually, this is my dream. But then me saying that sounded foolish to me. And so I just kept that inside. And then as time passes, then grows this other fear that it'll never happen. And this fear that my opportunity is going to pass me by.
Yep.
And so there are these two ends of the spectrum sort of battling each other. And eventually the fear of regret and being like, I'm going to get to a certain age where it's going to be too late. And I'm always going to think back to, I could have done that, but I didn't. And then having to explain that to anyone else or myself, that just pained me. I made the big decision. I quit my job and I ended up becoming a personal trainer. So I didn't like just stop working. So I ended up becoming a personal trainer just because, it paid good money and pays good money in Hong Kong. Also, I'd have flexible hours where I could train. And so I did that for a while in Hong Kong. I just went full steam ahead into MMA and I fought like 4 times in like, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, which is a lot because I was just like, oh, I need to make up for lost time. And then, so I mean, at the time I thought, oh, I'm going to do this for 1 or 2 years. And now it's been like 6 almost. And I'm still here going strong. And I think I never envisioned at the time I made the decision that I was going to make it this far. Like, it wasn't even like I had goals. Like, I decided the day I decided I was going to do MMA, I was like, I'm going to make it to UFC. Like, that was nowhere near what the plan I had for myself. The plan was really just to give it a year, give it 2 years, scratch the itch, see how far I can take it. I just didn't even know if I was going to be good at it. Didn't even know if I was going to enjoy it. Like, I had so many questions, but I was like, I'll find answers, So then it was more just for me to figure out who I was, less about me achieving all these things, but me achieving all these things and getting to where I'm at was really just a byproduct of all of that.
Okay, I have a lot of questions now. Okay, so I want to pull you back towards where all these things got started, right? So I noticed that from your talks and all that you're coming from a Chinese-Filipino family. And so you mentioned that just now that you started, you went for the martial art. It's simply because of the confidence. So has it been like something that it's been in your family? For example, your parents don't know about this, or they were also interested in martial art or something, or it was just like, something that you figure it out. Like, how did you get to that point that, oh, this is something that I want to do in order to boost my confidence level?
So nobody in my family does martial art.
Okay.
We
So
did
you're
a
the
little
first
bit
one.
of, I mean, when we were kids, like we would do taekwondo, and it was more of like a discipline thing, like
Correct.
kids class, just to keep kids occupied so they're not like getting into trouble.
Yes.
But there was no one, I mean, there aren't any professional athletes in my family either. So there was no influence from my background that really was like, here's, I've paved the way. And so here, just like follow my footsteps. My family, we're from the Philippines. So we're really into basketball. So definitely basketball was like something that all the guys played. And I was a bit of a tomboy where I like just really wanted to play all the sports, right? So all the guys played the sports and I really wanted to do that. And, my dad was like very into Bruce Lee, as you would, that generation.
Yep.
And, but it was never like, oh, you should do it. You should try martial arts. If anything, it would have been like, oh, maybe we'll put her in martial arts so she'll learn how to defend herself. So at a young age, it was more like team sports that I gravitated towards. So obviously it was basketball because, that was just my dad played and then he would like teach us how to play. And then it was rugby because, Hong Kong rugby is really big. And so my friends played rugby. So that was like how I got into that. And then the only reason I got into Muay Thai or kickboxing was because, I don't know, in 2005, I think it just became a trend for a lot of women to like get in shape and like do kickboxing. And there's these cardio kickboxing classes.
Yes.
So that's more or less how I got into it. And it was really just for fitness at the time.
Oh, why did you choose the Muay Thai? Why are you so hard on yourself? Let's put it that way. There are a lot of like softer, like, the martial arts.
Yeah.
Why do you pick the toughest one?
I'm definitely like a contact sport kind of person. Like I definitely have, I don't know, maybe it's something inside of me like that just needs to kind of experience that level of like energy. And I wouldn't say I'm not like an aggressive person. Like I didn't grow up fighting. And in fact, I've always been really shy. And I would say like that's kind of who I am as a person still. Like definitely an introvert. But I think I always admired, because of like me being shy and me being an introvert, I always admired like, action movies where you have the hero and obviously like at the beginning they're always this like normal person or like even less than a normal person, just like very inadequate. And the
Yeah.
whole hero's journey is them overcoming these obstacles to then become the person that's worthy of slaying the dragon or whatever it may be.
Mm.
And so I think having seen all these different, narratives that are so similar, just being really inspired, being like, okay, so you choose to become a hero by meeting challenges that you're not necessarily prepared for, but just kind of going for it and then failing along the way, because
Mm.
there's always some kind of obstacle that like, pushes them down and then you have to get back up. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's also like the enjoyment of like punching and kicking something. Like I would just assume anyone would just let off some steam, just punch and kick something. Obviously, I'm not saying like people like to get punched or kicked back, but
Yes.
usually as a workout, right? You're like hitting a bag or hitting a pad and no one's getting hurt. And so at the
Yep.
beginning, that was just like, I really enjoyed the fact that you could just kick and punch something and like really release that energy,
Mm-hmm.
and get a really good workout in, and then just be like out of breath. And it was just like, you didn't need like a big field or like, any fancy equipment. All you needed is a pair of gloves and a bag.
That's true. That's true. That's exactly what most people do. Okay, so let me press you back a little bit on the point that just now you mentioned. So you are an introvert, and you've been an introvert, and you say I'm still an introvert, right? So for an introvert, most of them they rather stay behind the scene. They rather not to face the brutal fact of the things. And when I was watching some of your fight, I was just like, to be honest, I don't watch those kind of like, aggressive sport. It gives me anxiety. But I tell you something, Ramona. I am coming from a family because I'm originally from Iran, and we are also quite famous for like taekwondo, karate, And I remember when I was in my teenage years, I used to go for all these martial arts, and I attended like about 2 years karate, like about 1 or 2 years in taekwondo, until one day I got a punch in my face and my nose started to like, I think it's dislocated or something. And then that was the stop.
Oh,
That was the stop. I just stopped there. So like what you said, people like to do it until they get the punch in their face. I remember this quote
yeah.
about who was it? Mike Tyson. He said everybody has a
Yep.
plan until they get a punch on their face. So that day,
Yes.
that day I said, okay, this is not for me. This is not for me. And when I also was watching your TEDx, so you also mentioned there that this is also another fear that I have, like public speaking. We both know it's a very scary things, because I've been speaking with the audience of like 5,000, 10,000 I have done, and it's pretty scary, but it's not as scary as what you do. So let's put it this way. Why Ramona does that to herself as someone who is an introvert? And I want this to take this message in a way that explaining to someone out there who is an introvert, right? And then you choose to put yourself out there, getting so in yourself inside a cage. There is a spotlight from everywhere on you. People are watching you, or you go in front of the TEDx, like hundreds of thousands of people are there, and you're facing that. Like, how do you do it, and what brought yourself there? Like what is the process look like for someone who is an introvert and listening to us? You can take your
So
time.
the thought of public speaking and
Mm.
of fighting, to me, still to this day, gives me anxiety.
Oh yeah,
100%.
definitely,
Like
definitely.
the lead up to the fight, all of it, or lead up to a speaking event, right? Like I feel all of those nerves. And perhaps I feel more of them than maybe an extrovert. I'm not sure. I
Mm.
wouldn't know because I'm not one. But I think what I've always done is dedicated myself, because sometimes when you have like a deadline, you're more likely to make sure that you're prepared to hit that deadline rather
All
than
right.
if you're like, oh, I want to be the best fighter in the world, but there are no deadlines for you to hit to
Mm-hmm.
test yourself. Then what how can you really push yourself to do that? How can you motivate yourself to do that if you don't have that deadline, right? That date of like, I want to complete this task at this date, or I'm going to try to, at least. And I think that the key word here is try, because you're like, oh, I want to win, or I want to, give an amazing talk. It's like, no one can guarantee that you're going to win, or you're going to have an amazing talk, or you're going to be able to get the reaction that you want from the crowd. But you can always be in control and decide how much effort you're going to put into it. And so I think for me, it's like, even though I have all these fears, what I do to try to counter all of that is I put in the work. I'm in the gym every day, 2 to 3 times a day, and I just work.
Wow.
And I try as much as possible to have a positive mindset, because when I go into the gym every day, I'm basically being like, all right, I'm gonna get beat up. It's not whether or not I'm gonna get beat up. It's I am gonna get beat up. And so how am I gonna react to those moments? Sometimes it's like what we say, there's a saying where like, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. So sometimes I'm the hammer, I'm doing well, and sometimes I'm the nail. There's no in between. You're switching roles depending on who you're going with. Maybe you're going with someone who's really high level. Maybe you're going with someone less experienced, and you have to navigate how you regulate yourself between that, like not getting way overconfident when you're doing well, and not getting so down on yourself when you're not doing well, because in any extreme, it affects your ability to continue the momentum, or to like have a fresh slate for the next moment and the next moment and the next moment, right? Because if you think you're too good, that's just you're gonna be, underestimate the person that you're working with, and you could get hurt, or they could pull off something on you that they shouldn't have if you were more cautious, or if you're down on yourself because you're getting beat up and you keep thinking about the fact that, oh my gosh, I got punched in the face, or I got kicked really hard. That's just going to perpetuate your bad performance if you can't just snap out of it and be like, okay, this is a new moment. Now I'm going to try this. So not letting losses hinder me. And I think that's what I exercise every day at the gym. And the challenge for me is to keep a positive mindset, because I'm not perfect. And I've had moments where I've just gotten frustrated, where I'm annoyed that I'm not doing well, that someone is doing something way better than I am, or, so many different factors. Maybe I'm not feeling well, or maybe, whatever. And I think just being able to keep going in, keep trying to control my mindset, and always be in that learning point of view where I'm learning. I fail, I'm learning. I'm successful. Okay, great. Now what else can I learn? How else can I challenge myself? And then if I can just maintain as much as possible, because sometimes it doesn't work out like that, but if I can, as much as possible, maintain that mindset, all it is just hours. Because if I have that mindset, the intention is there. And with the right intention, given time, you're only going to get better. Like there's no way you're not going to get better. There's no way you're going to stay the same or get worse.
Yep. That's
true. So after
true.
I've done that, and it could be in the fighting context, and it could be in the speaking context, where I write something out, I get people to look at it, I get feedback, I talk to people that have more experience, mentors, and they give me, whether they say, oh, this looks good, or like give me like constructive feedback. I need to be able to take that and learn from it, and not be like, oh, I feel so hurt that he said that my writing was bad at this part, or it wasn't appropriate, or I need to do better. It's like, this is a good thing. Like he's like critiquing me so that I can like produce better work. And you spend hours and hours just doing that. It's like, I might have the fear that I'm just going to mess everything up, but at the same time, I put in the work.
Yep.
And that is the only fact. The fact is I put in the work. Not saying that that's going to guarantee any level of success, but usually it will in the long run. If you look at, a long period of time.
Yes.
So I think preparation, and then preparation comes from, not just motivation, because you're going to run out of motivation, but just having routine, and then being disciplined with certain areas of your life to make sure that you can perform at your best, get enough sleep, eat well, exercise, be active, and just make sure things are balanced in your life. Even the people that you interact with, make sure that they're the right kinds of people, so that you can really excel in what you do. And I think that, given that, if you've put in the work, it's like you've done the preparation, and the only thing that's going to stop you from doing well is if you don't believe in yourself. But why wouldn't you believe in yourself if you've done all this work? You have this whole track record of things. And so that's kind of how I go about it. Just
beautiful
put in the work, be around the right people.
Yep. I think it was amazing, and I am 100% agree with you. I just want to summarize some of the points that you mentioned, and it was really amazing. I think you started first with like setting for yourself some what we call that, like giant goals, and
Mm,
those goals are very important, meaning that one of the things that in my work also I found, some people, they just say like, oh, I'm an introvert person, so I don't think this is for me. And even in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that you went for sales, right? Even some people, they don't want to do sales because they think like sales is only for extrovert people, but that's not really true. You can be an introvert person and you can push yourself out of your comfort zone and putting some goals for yourself and just go for it, right? So setting some goals for yourself, which is something that you have never done before, it is already an element of courage. And I personally do, when I was looking at the work that you have done, you have this perfection, in what you do. Even when I was listening to your TEDx, and I was keep on looking at it, and I was like, wow, where is the mistake? Where's the mistake in that speech? I know I can, as someone who delivers speeches like all the time, when I see one, I can quickly pick up a few things there that, okay, this is fault, okay, this one you could have done it better, this one you didn't do it well, oh, this one there was no humor there, the fun could have been there, you could have given a good example there. And it was so perfected talk, right? And now that you explained to me that you wrote it down, you show it to people, you receive that like feedbacks, it's amazing. I'm very, very proud to having this conversation with you, frankly speaking. And I really mean it when I say that, because like most people, they don't want to put the work. And I think that spirit come from you fighting in that the highest level of like athlete, that you can literally kill yourself on that ring, right? And if you are not perfect, if you have not done the work right, it's simply something that bad can happen to you. That. I mean, we have many examples of like athletes has gone through those kind of extreme, and they really like went out of the way, and now you don't know where they are, somewhere disabled or what. And you are putting that, this reminds me of also this quote from, if I'm not mistaken, Winston Churchill. He says something like this. He said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it's the courage to continue which is count. Yeah. So how
mm.
does Ramona do how do you come back from failures? Like, I mean, this is like your time. There's one thing that you just now you mentioned. You said like, even when I'm coming out of the cage, even if I fail, I'm just proud of myself that I did it, right? So how do you continue the good fight that you are doing? I mean, fight for your life and a fight in your career, right? Where does that courage come from?
I think it develops, and it takes
Mm,
time to develop, and where it starts from. And courage is one of those things where when it builds momentum, it really builds and it really snowballs. So I would have to say, if we pull it back all the way to the beginning, it's not so much courage. Well, it's a little bit of courage, but it's more curiosity.
oh
It's more
wow, oh
curiosity.
wow, that's so true, so
Yeah,
true.
because it's like, but like a really strong curiosity of, I need to know.
Mm,
I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's a yes or a no or a maybe, but I need to know. And so
wow,
this
wow, I love it.
desire that I had, and I would say, it's not that I have this desire for like anything. My thing was martial arts, and I'm sure
Mm,
everyone has a different thing, right? And some people don't know what their thing is yet. So it would be beneficial to just try. And one of the things that I would say, and a lot of people come to me and they're like, I don't have one, I don't know what it is. I would say there's always going to be something inside of you, because you live this whole life with so
yep,
many influences, whether it's books, TV, family, friends, environment. You're inspired by something. There's something
correct.
out there that's inspired you throughout and if you can connect to that and really spend time trying to figure that out, that might lead you into, oh, maybe I might try this. Maybe I might be into golf, or maybe I might be into cooking or interior design. There's always something that you're like, oh, I really like that. I think I like that. Well, if you think you like that, you need to go for it. And you
Mm.
need to try to find out, like, is that your thing? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Yep.
But I think you just take that curiosity and you just kind of run with it. So for me, it was like trying out a class. Like I just went to a gym and I tried a class, it's like free. Like it just started so small. And then that class turned into like a week. And then I started going not super consistent, because I still had other sports and I was like not taking it seriously at the time. I was young and like I would party every so often. So there was nothing really that was saying be competitive.
Yep.
But then after a while, I do it for a long period, enough of a period of time. And I just suck. Every day I suck, you have to be willing to suck at something
Yep.
because you're not going to
Yep.
be like, oh, I did my first class. This is my passion now.
Yep.
It doesn't work like that.
Yep.
You just do it and it's challenging, but you just continue. That curiosity just drives you to just show up every day or every other day, maybe even twice a week. And then the more that you show up, you surprise yourself with what you're willing to do and
Wow.
the hardships that you're willing to go through. And this isn't I'm not talking about real hardship in life, right? This is just going to the gym, right? Just
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
sport.
Yeah.
But it counts for something when you're starting small. And the more that you do it, the more you're like, this is challenging, this is hard, but I like it. And more than anything, I like the person I become when I
Mm.
overcome these challenges after I've been committed to this for a while. And so I think it was just a whole kind of mixture of a lot of different things
Correct.
that then made it my passion. There's so many things that I just liked about it, but also it was still hard. I struggled, I suffered, I just was so out of breath that like I couldn't move. Like that's not an enjoyable feeling, but it was always the after where I'm like, oh my God, I did that, like, oh my God, I went through that. And then, yeah, I can say like after more than 15 years of martial arts, it's just been one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. And so it just doesn't happen like overnight. It's been a very long journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I really, really love the way you put it because apparently one of the pillars in the book that so when I was preparing for the conversation with you, I was debating, Ramona, between courage and curiosity. So curiosity basically is one of the pillars in living an in control life as well. And my definition of curiosity is your willingness to do more, explore more, win more, deliver more, go extra mile. And I was debating with myself, like, should I go with curiosity with you or should I go with courage? And then when you mentioned like, it's like courage plus like a snowball of like, just sometimes you just want to be suck at doing something. And then after that, you eventually get there as long as you're willing to go extra mile. It was just amazing. It was just like, I was like, oh man.
I could tell from your reaction. I was like, oh, I said the right thing.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like, should I redo the introduction? But it was amazing. And I completely agree with you because this is exactly what happened to me. I remember when I was in my early 20s. So my background also was engineering. I was an industrial engineer. And when I got into my first job, I had a mentor back then. He told me that, Reza, I want you to do sales. And I was like, what? Sales? What do you want me to do sales? He said, no, sales basically is something that it will help you to build your courage. It builds you, to do something you have never done before. Because as an engineer, of course, you're always sitting inside the office. You're not meeting anyone. You're often dealing with the machines and all those stuff, right? So he said, sales itself will teach you, for example, to meet people, to present, to what we call that, ask great questions, listen very carefully, persuade people, close, tackle objections. These are some of the things that you will never learn it at the office. You never learn it at the office as long as you're willing to do it. So I was debating with myself, and I hate the guy for a couple of months because he was asking me to do something that it was irrelevant to my education. And even I complained to my parents, like, I think I want to change my job, right? And I'm so glad, I took his words very seriously, and he changed my perspective, for example, on a sales topic itself. And it's amazing. When I first started, when I did my very first talk, I went in front of the crowd and I swear to God, I forgot my name. I opened my mouth, nothing came out. For 10 seconds, I was in a total shock. My hand was shivering, my knees was shaking. I have that like butterfly effect. It become already like a dragon effect. I was so nervous. Even if I was in the participant, I go home. But then when I look back after running like thousands of presentations, and every time I'm doing it, I think I'm getting better. And that is like exactly what like you say. It's a combination of courage and curiosity. Like how better Ramona can get, how better Reza can get, right? So Ramona, how do you put like, do you have like a point that you said, okay, once I reach this point, I think I'm already done. Like, this is the pinnacle that I'm looking for. Do you have that pinnacle?
No. And I think that was part of
I need to clap for you. I need to clap for you first. Yeah. So because that's exactly, if you answer anything other than that, I would be like, okay. Yeah. You are the champion. Okay, go for it.
It's always just been open-ended.
Exactly.
And I think if you had asked me in my earlier years, I would have given you some kind of answer, but it wouldn't have been a very convincing answer, because as each year went, my goal would just shift and shift and shift. Wow. It's like once I achieve one goal, immediately, it's like once I come close, not even after I've achieved it, I'm close to achieving that goal, I'm already thinking about the next one, because I have that confidence that I'm going to get there. I'm whatever, it might be days away, weeks away, a month away, a year away from achieving this goal. Yep. And then life will continue on and there's going to be something else, so then I think ahead, and I wouldn't say I think too far ahead, because I'm always like, okay, I want to have like the clear path in front of me. I don't want to get too big with like what I'm thinking. But then I like that I just keep open-ended, because then it's like, if one path doesn't work out, maybe there's another one, Beautiful. Maybe it's like something that I haven't even thought of, and I go that way. So I would say the main goal, the main idea always stays the same.
Yep.
But then the path to those different goals, I just keep that open, because anything can happen. And I think if I hold too tight to anything, I'm just going to be disappointed, right? Or I'm going to fail to see the other opportunities that come from one opportunity falling through. And then, like you said, curiosity, right? Being curious enough and being a student. If there's something that you care so passionately about, you will forever be a student of it. Like you're just a total nerd, right? Like I'm like watching videos of techniques. I'm like listening to fighters, at the highest level, like talk fight philosophy and how and when you get to that level, you always try to draw parallels between what you do and life, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all just, you're experiencing life in like kind of a smaller degree of like the highs and the lows and all the different emotions that go into it. And you're just craving the knowledge and the experience and like very inspired by the ideas. And so, curiosity is like super important to kind of just keep you going.
Exactly. I am 100% agree with you. And that's exactly one of the answers that, I found after like I started to interview a lot of people. And this is exactly the common things that I found among all these ultra high performers is that whenever you ask them, it's about like, so what's the goal here? What's the end goal here? It's not, he said like, there is no destination there. It's about how far you can go, because the moment you start to put up a goal there, like, okay, this is the end for me, it's simply meaning that you start to develop fixed mindset. Yeah. You start to have a fixed mindset and there is a ceiling there, right? So this is the highest I can go, right? So it's not about like the ceiling, it's about having a growth mindset that like, I love the way you put it, is like, okay, I reach here. Now this is the new path. Okay, this is the new path. because you don't want to experience what we call it as a destination disease. It means that you reach to the point that you think like, okay, I'm done with my life. And you know what? If I know a lot of like athletes that even when I was going through the process of the writing, I met some athletes that when I met them, they used to be someone super successful, very famous. And then once they start to reach that point, that's where depression comes to them. They start to become depressed because they say like, there is no other mountain for me to climb. And I love the way you put it, because like it's about creating the next mountain, because you are in control of the next mountain. It's not necessarily need to be like at this height. It could be a different mountain. You know that like what you mentioned in the earlier of the conversation, you said like, for athletes, usually the age of like 30, if you're damn good, maybe 40, but then that's already like, the peak of your performance, because there is something that, yes, mentally you're ready for it, spiritually you're ready, emotionally ready, but physique is something that by a certain age, you already reach to your peak. And perhaps now you need to pick a new path. So I want to ask you one question. This is something very important to me also. And I always ask the people, the ultra high performers, people like you, I always ask them that, so when was the time that you found I'm good at this? This is something that I can actually pick it up as my career. I know you've been very passionate about it, right? So generally, based on my experience, is that people often reach to that point when they go through like one trauma or a major success, or there was something that happened that you realize like, okay, this is my thing. I want to be in control of my life, and I know I'm going to succeed. When was that moment for you?
So I would say there were two moments. The first one was, so I started off my career. I fought 4 times in 8 months because I was just trying to be active as possible.
Yeah.
So I won my first 2 fights, but then I lost my next 2 fights. And so 2 losses back to back really sucks,
Yep.
After my second fight, I was so confident. I was like, yeah, I'm going to win the next one. And I underestimated my opponent, as you do. And so that was such a big learning experience, not just in technical side of things, but also just in my mindset and how I approach these things.
Wow.
And as soon as I lost, I was like, but I didn't know it at the time, obviously, because it took some years. So at the time I was like, I shouldn't have lost to that girl. I want to fight straight away. I just want to get that loss back. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'll fight again and then I'll win so that it won't make this loss feel as bad. And then I lose that fight. And I'm like, what? There's something wrong here, And at the time I didn't even know. There were so many different factors. But then that was a moment where I had to be like, okay, now I've won 2 and I've lost 2. So it really doesn't, if you look at that on a piece of paper, you're like, this person is like good or not. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I knew that I was better than what these results showed. So then I was like, okay, there's something that I'm not doing right. And I need to just take some time to sit back and reevaluate. So I reevaluated everything. And actually, because of that period of reevaluation, I decided to leave Hong Kong, because I knew that if I stayed in Hong Kong, there would always be a ceiling and I would never get past that.
Correct.
Because Hong Kong is not known for MMA. And so that's when I left. I got this awesome opportunity to train in Korea, where MMA is way more developed. And so I've basically just taken opportunities as they've come to me. And that's led me to leaving Hong Kong, training in Korea, training in Thailand, training in China, and then now training in America. And I never had this plan to do all these things, but the whole goal was just to be the best fighter I could be. And I just had to, go to these different places to seek the best, training partners and coaches I could find. So that was one place where I thought I've lost, and anyone could have been like, oh my God, I lost twice. I suck at this. Like, I failed, and just maybe I should just do something else.
Yeah.
But if anything, it just made me hungrier. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to educate myself on like strength and conditioning, on like nutrition, all these things that most fighters like don't take the time. But I was like, okay, I have so many resources. YouTube, I learned so much from YouTube, and you just have to go out and seek. Obviously now you have no excuse.
Yep.
And the second time would be when I was preparing for a fight, and it was the biggest fight of my life. It was going to be in Beijing. and I talked about this in my TED talk, and that was a whole theme of my TED talk. When I got
Yes.
injured, I blew up my knee. And so I've blown up my knee. I have bad knees. So I've blown up my knee twice already. So I've had a bunch of knee surgeries. So once when I was, in high school, got knee surgery playing basketball. That was the last time I ever played basketball. And then 6 years after that, I was 24 and I was playing rugby. I blew up my knee playing rugby. And never, that was the last time I was on the pitch. I never went back, because these injuries were like, oh, maybe I don't love it enough. Like this sucks. Like surgery sucks. Rehab sucks. Being on crutches sucks. Like not being able to walk sucks, and like having to take a year off. And then I come, do I want to go back to that? I'm like, no. And then 6 years later, I blow up my knee in MMA. But the difference was when that happened, in my head, I was like, I'm coming back. Like there was no other alternative. I was going to come back. And so I think injuries are a great way. And I'm never going to say go get injured because they're the worst. The things that they do to your mind and like the depression it puts you in sometimes.
Yeah.
But I would have to say that convinced me that this is what I wanted to do. That injury was like, just made me even hungrier, It's like, I wasn't willing to experience this again in basketball. I wasn't willing to experience this again in rugby, but I was willing to experience this again in MMA. I was willing to come back and risk it all again. And so knowing that happened to me and then going through that whole process of like having to come back and all the things that went on through my mind, getting the surgery, having to learn how to walk again, jump on, and then getting back into training and like, to level of fighting just gave me so much more confidence and just conviction that this is what I want. Because the whole time in my mind, it was my job to get back to where I was, so I was in the gym all hours of the day doing little, like if you saw me doing what I was doing, like exercises, with the bands and stuff, you're like, what is that? Is that like a top level athlete? It's like grandmas can do that, but I did all that, and so I think losses and like injuries and like heartbreaks like that, if they don't stop you from doing something, they only make you hungrier to continue, and they can really show you that is truly what you want.
That's so true. That's so true. Les Brown, he has these things like you got to be hungry for success. You got to be hungry for next level. So if I want to summarize this, basically the first one, this is something very interesting. You said that you have gone through 2 wins, you have gone through 2 losses, and then after that you went through a moment of reflection. That was very interesting. So it means that you do reflection a lot. And that is something we often explain in whenever we do mentoring. We say like, experience doesn't make you wiser. Most people, they think experience make you wiser. The more experience you get, the wiser you get. But frankly speaking, I personally have seen a lot of like people that they're getting older, but they're not getting wiser, So it's just they're getting older. So, but what makes us wiser is the evaluated experience, the reflected experience. That's something amazing. And then the second one, it was a very interesting thing. So you said that you went through the rugby, you gave up rugby. You went through the basketball, you got hurt, you gave up that. But when you went through MMA, you said that I don't care that I got hurt. And that's the point that that this is your calling, this is your passion, this is something that you are really, really in love with it. And that's the point that you got the idea of like, I want to turn it around. I want to become the best. I want to go as far as I can. That's like a really, really good realization. How did you come to that when it comes especially to the reflection? Most people, they don't reflect. Like what age were you when you had like you went through 2 losses and then you decided to reflect and evaluate?
I was like 28, around 27, 28.
Okay.
So I would say I'd probably, sort of mature enough to have that sort of mindset. I think if I was 24, it probably would have been different. Done
it. Okay. But so who influenced your life the most, Ramona?
That's a good question. I would have to say probably my dad, because he is one of the hardest working people I know. And I think growing up, he would always say things like attitude is everything, and to lead others you have to serve them, and really sort of instilling a lot of these like he reads a lot of books and sort of, so it was always like a lesson behind things that he would say, or, the way that you would treat people. And that's really how I carry myself. And I would credit that to him. But at the time when I was younger and he would say these things, I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever,
Yeah, I
kind of
know.
like,
I know.
oh, there he goes again. Like this whole thing, like attitude is
But he's
everything,
planting the
because like,
seeds,
when
right?
you're younger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
planting the
And so
seeds.
there are all these things, and all these things about like humility and, respect. And respect was a really, really big thing in
Oh
our
my
home.
God, that's
It was
too big.
always
That's
just
too big.
like my father, he wouldn't really mind if we came back with bad grades, actually. Like he'd be like, okay, that's okay. But if you were disrespectful, that was the line. Like he would not tolerate that. So it was
Wow.
always an emphasis on character, not so much on like result. So he was always very encouraging of like my sports and things like that, or my team sports. Not so much the fighting, but like,
Mm.
and so yeah, I would actually credit him. Although he would be very heartbroken if he kind of learned that it was because of him that I fight, or somewhat,
No, I'm pretty sure, like, they would be very proud of what you have accomplished. And I'm 100% agree with you. I personally, I think I am who I am because of my parents as well, because of the value that established in me. Especially reading was a very, very big part of my life, and I am who I am because of many of the books that I read. And even growing up, the way we get incentivized at home was always through reading. My dad used to say, like, you want to earn more, read more, right? So that's how it is. Do you read, Ramona? Do you read books?
Mm.
What do you read?
I listen to audiobooks.
Okay, you
I'm
are
not a very
most
good
into.
reader, but
Okay,
I'm more of an auditory learner,
beautiful.
audio and visual. Yeah.
Okay, nice,
So
nice, nice,
I do love like podcasts. I love listening to podcasts.
beautiful.
And they can be anything from, biohacking with like sleep and,
Yeah,
endurance and recovery, or it could be on relationships, whether that's, intimate relationships or family relationships or friendships. I find that kind of stuff fascinating.
okay.
So I'm constantly sort of listening to, things on that topic, or audiobooks as well.
Okay, beautiful. So I'm just gonna go through. I know we are reaching to the end of our podcast. So I'm just gonna go through some quick questions, something that you have never
Sure.
maybe share with other places, or any other talks and all. So tell us something that not many people knows about Ramona, and you have never spoke about it before.
Oh, that I've never spoken about before. Gosh.
Some hidden secret somewhere.
Oh man, I don't know if there's like anything that like
Any
the world doesn't know
interest
about
that you
already, because
have.
pretty much, I like,
like you have like
I would say,
certain in
okay. This is one. So I got into, I was in the business program in
mm-hmm,
university,
mm-hmm.
but actually I wanted to switch into the journalism school because I wanted to do broadcast journalism. Because
Wow.
some odd reason, as a teenager and in college, I kind of had this thing where I was like, oh, I really want to be a news anchor. So I would
I
say
think
like
you still can,
I really wanted to get into broadcast journalism. But well, yeah, actually that's really interesting. Yeah, I a lot of people don't know that that I actually tried to transfer into the communication school so that I could do broadcast journalism, but my grades weren't good enough at the time. And then a lot of people were
Mm-hmm.
like, "Why are you leaving the business school?" It's like a lot of people want to get in there, blah blah. So I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll just stay in business," because everyone, that was the thing. And yeah, and I would say, there was one time where I was like, "Oh, here's another instance where fear crippled me," because there was this like broadcast journalism organization on
Mm-hmm.
campus, and I really wanted to go audition for like whatever role. And I literally got to the door and then I left. I didn't even go in
Wow.
because I was so afraid.
Now
Yeah.
you are
So
walking
I
in
would
the
say,
cage of MMA.
yeah,
Right. It's
literally.
like,
So
oh my
I'm
God.
like
Oh my God.
prime example of someone who just let fear overcome me.
Mm.
So now, interestingly enough, I think that was part of the reason I was like, I want to be a public speaker. I want to be able to present ideas in a compelling and structured manner that
Sure.
entertains people, that inspires people, that makes them laugh, that makes them feel, engaged, and so that's kind of why I also went into public speaking, because I was like, I have a lot of stories to tell and I like to express myself. And so I want to be able to have the confidence to do that. And now with the fighting, it's like, I'm looking up to these like commentators and
Yeah.
analysts that are talking. These are like people that used to be fighters, right? And I'm like, I would love to do that. So who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? There's
Maybe
still
you
a
would be
chance.
the
There's still a
next like
chance.
Joe Rogan or something, you know? So that's
I
like,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. You speak very,
that.
very well, frankly speaking, you know. I
Thank
mean,
you.
I really mean it when I say that, you know. I don't like to, when somebody is not good, I just don't say anything. And then later, maybe we
Sure.
would say,
Sure.
like, maybe you can improve this area and that area. But I
Sure.
personally found your delivery like kind of like spotless, you know, and you sure have a like very good future in that zone. I can tell you. Okay. So okay, the
Thank
second question I
you.
want to ask you is this one. If Ramona can go back and fix something, what would you fix?
I would probably tell my younger self that it's okay to be afraid. I think when I was younger and, a lot of things, fear stopped me from doing a lot of things.
Mm,
I would have gone back and told her that it was okay and that was all part of the process, because I have this notorious, and I'm sure a lot of people do, of being really hard on myself
yep.
when I don't have the courage to do certain things, or don't get around to doing things that I feel like I should. I think that would be the only thing, to be kinder to myself. And that's still something that I have to remind myself every day, even now.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Ramona, how do you want to be remembered in the future?
I want to be remembered as someone who went and did difficult things, who was willing to go out there and
Wow.
do difficult things regardless of result. I wouldn't say that I want to be remembered as someone who like won every single fight, or that was, champion for many years. Like, who knows what's going to happen. But I want to be remembered for someone who put in all this effort when with all these odds stacked against me, and just did it anyway, regardless of what the result was. Because,
Beautiful.
I'm a girl from Hong Kong, this dense city that like MMA is not a thing there, like they definitely prioritize other sports. And
Yep.
I wouldn't say
Yep.
they're a very sport focused city
Yep.
compared to like so many other countries or cities. So there was no path for me to walk. I
Yep.
just kind of just did it. And so I think that's how I would want to be remembered, as someone who just went for it.
And that is something that definitely I strongly believe that not necessarily in Hong Kong, right? I think the whole world, especially like Asian countries, you what you are setting, what we call it as environmental cues, that and some point that people will start to quote you that, hey, if she did it, you can do it too. So that is something that I strongly believe that it's and hopefully it's going to inspire a lot of young female out there, that they can see you and they get inspired by that. So okay, Ramona, so where are people can find you, where are you mostly are?
I would say Instagram. That's mainly the platform that I use. I have a Twitter. I don't really use it. I also have Facebook. I'm not really on there. So
Sure.
Instagram at Ramona Carla would be the
Beautiful.
main place to
When is your
keep up
next
with
fight,
what
by the
I'm
way?
doing.
When is your next big
So
fight?
my next fight is going to be on June 11th. So that will be June
Woohoo.
12th in Asia, in Singapore. So
Oh
very
wow.
excited for that.
Nice. Hey, not far from us, because we're in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's beautiful. So guys, we hope this conversation has inspired you to know more and learn more with us. A reminder to everyone, on living an in control life is the life where you live when you love what you do, you love who you do it with, you love who you do it for, and you love how you do it. Please tune in our next podcast. And as always, we love to have you around. Thank you for listening to us. And thank you, Ramona, for joining us. And really, it was a privilege and honor to speak with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.